starting shortly. So, welcome everybody. This is the second webinar of our series zooming into the ULaaDS lighthouse cities. So today the focus is on the city of Groningen. Many of you will be also joining us in Groningen for the study visit that we will be having there from the 11th to the 12th of October. So for today, just in case we have participants that have not been involved on ULaaDS before, I will just give a very, very short introduction on these projects. So ULaaDS stands for Urban Logistics as an On-Demand Service, and the objective of our project is to foster sustainable and livable cities through the deployment of innovative, shared, zero-emission logistics while dealing with the impact of the on-demand economy. In our project, we have 3 lighthouse cities, the city of Groningen, which we will be hearing a lot about today, the city of Mechelen and the city of Bremen. And then we have 4 satellite cities, Rome, Alba Iulia, Bergen, and Edinburgh, that are attending the webinar today, and that also will be joining the study visit with the objective of picking up on some measures and potentially replicate them in the future. For today, the agenda, you can see it on the screen. This is my welcome and introduction to all of you. I am Mariana Americo. I am a project and forum coordinator at EuroCities. And we will then go to our 4 speakers for today. Jauke from the city of Groningen, which will give us an introduction to the approach to sustainable urban logistics in the city. We will then hear from Martin, which is a hub program manager at OV Bureau, which is the transport operator or authority. Martin, correct me. Both. And then we will hear from Erwin Mulder, which is project leader at the Groningen City Club, and we will finish off with Paul, which is assistant professor at the University of Groningen. I will open the floor for questions after each of the presentations. So if you have any questions for our speakers, feel free to raise your hand or write them in the chat. And then we will have a discussion at the end of the webinar. So if you have more questions, you can also ask them towards the end. So that was it from my side, and I will stop sharing my screen and give you the floor, Jauke.
Yes, thank you, Ariana. Hi, all of you. Welcome to this digital tour of Groningen. I'll share my screen right now. And I'll give you a short introduction about Groningen and also about the work we did on logistics. I assume you can see my screen now. Can you confirm?
Yes, we can.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so let's start about Groningen. Groningen is a city in the north of the Netherlands, 230,000 inhabitants. It's a very young city. It's a green and happy and a healthy city. And when you look at all the numbers when it comes to the living environment, Groningen is ranked as the healthiest city in the Netherlands, and of course we're proud of it, and still working hard on to keep it this way. Groningen has been working for decades on being a compact city, keeping functions together, creating a city which is ideal for walking and cycling. They started in the 70s with the traffic circulation plan, and since then we've been working on completing and making the city even better. And right now we're in the city plan, which is called Space for You, which is a message to the people, to the residents, but also the visitors. We make space for you in the city. And part of this in the city plan is also the work on logistics, because we realize that logistics puts a lot of space on the public space, a lot of pressure on the public space in the city. So we came up with a sustainable urban logistics plan in 21 with 4 concrete measurements. I think the most important one and coming up very soon is the enlargement of the controlled zone for logistics traffic, combined with camera enforcement and with new exemption policy for vehicles to enter the zone. And the same zone will be the zero emission zone in 2025. You can see the area on the images on the right. And this didn't come up in once. In 2014, we already started with signing a Green Deal, and I think we're now almost 10 years on our way and finally getting some concrete measurements implemented. So it takes a long time and hard work to get some goals in the urban logistics. And I'll just show you some projects we have been working on the last years and will work on the next years, just to give you an idea of the things which are going on in the city. One project is Surflog, which started in 2017. We did a lot of small pilots with a lot of different companies, some with PostNL. And after the pilots, they decided to organize their own city hub. And from the city hub, they deliver in the whole inner city with small electrical vehicles you see right here. So this was a spin-off of the project. Another pilot we did with some cargo bike companies, which also resulted in a logistics hub, which still functions right now without any subsidies. And they focus on a really different business concept. And due to these pilots, we learned a lot about which kind of things do and don't work within these hubs. What should you do? What should you not do? So if you have any questions, we can dive into this later. I'll just continue with my story. Some other projects within Surflog we are continuing working on are in the service and construction logistics. This is a project of a technical wholesaler. Their customers, they try to make them use the small electrical vehicles instead of vans, making the parking easier and trying to make the work more efficient. Another project is working on a zero-emission construction site. This is focused in this project on the vertical transport with the crane, an electric crane, a little more expensive, but a lot of wins when it comes to livability for the workers on the site, but also for the people living around the site. Another one is a construction hub as a service. I think you all have heard about construction hubs for bigger projects, and this is more a service for the smaller projects who can do this on their own. So more or less a facility. We're working on a bigger logistics hub for electric zero-emission deliveries in the whole city. This one will be built from next year on, and we'll start with about 6 or 7 electric trucks focusing on the inner city. And just from another angle, we're working on our own logistics for our own office together with some other big organizations in Groningen. Right now we're in a tender. We talked to 6 companies who are interested in exploiting this hub for office logistics. So it's also an initiative we're working on right now. And this with coding the curbs is a project we will start next year. This is about making reservations on a loading bay so that the transport companies can plan their work better and they know for sure that there is space when they enter the city. So that's just a short overview of some things we are doing. And of course, we're here for ULaaDS. And I'll just show you very quick the 2 trials we're working on. One is focused on shop owners in the inner city. It's about shared mobility. And Erwin will dive more into this in the next presentation, but we are working together with 19 shop owners in the inner city. They're spread and testing 3 different types of vehicles: a cargo bike, a small electrical vehicle, and a van. And the second trial is about adding logistics services to a park and ride, and Martin will tell more about this. This is one of the park and ride sites which are part of a bigger network of hubs in the northern Netherlands. And we try to add more services to it and find out what this does with service on the site, but also with the use of the site and also with the amount of traffic in the city. So that was very short my introduction about Groningen and about the logistics approach we are working with. So thank you for your attention, and I can imagine there are some questions. At least I see this was within the time I was given. So for now, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sjouke. Do we have already some questions for Sjouke? If not, then I would move on to our next speaker, which is Martin. So, Martin, can I ask you to start sharing your screen?
Yes, I will. Hello, everyone. I will share my screen now. Welcome to Groningen, to the hub Groningen Drenthe. 2 provinces. No, Sjouke already told you, but this is some nice pictures, so you have you know what you can find here. What we are doing, Sjouke already told you just ago. The hubs is a larger network. We have 2 large networks. That's the public transport, and we have additional transport. Public transport is from the local governments, and the municipalities is more in charge of the additional transport. We had 2 different systems that didn't work together, and what we are trying to do is make it one combined network. And the places where you can switch from one network to the other, that is what we call a hub. So it's different than the logistic hubs that you already know. We have a large variety. If you see on the bottom here, you see in the middle there's a picture of Hoogkerk, where you, the site visit will go to. But we have also very small hubs where we have only 1 bus stop and a few bike storage shelters. So a large variety, and also a large variety in facilities. Of course, we have a lot of bikes, so we need a lot of storage for them. But we have also free Wi-Fi and some water. And what you can see in this picture, what we also want is people on a hub. So we started with public transport, and this is the whole network of the 2 provinces. Here you can see the regional and the national railway lines together with the main bus lines. And only those few lines, we have already 60% of the people using public transport in this network. Then we add our basic network. That's also have a lot of people together, 92. But the high frequently and in the cities, it's every half an hour there's a bus. And here you can also see the locations of our hubs. We have now 57 locations, and they're all on the network where it's also a BOT or basic network. So there's always public transport there. Then we have additional the hub taxi or the school buses. That's only on request, and that's still 8% of the people use that system. But if you look at the cost, that's almost half of the cost that we have for the whole network. If you the hub taxi will bring you to the hubs in a 50 kilometer radius. And you can see with the 57 hubs that we have we can cover the whole area of our 2 provinces. So we have door-to-door public transport, and that's quite unique in the Netherlands. For us, this is our main focus, public transport and hub taxi, but we're moving on. This is the main, in the city of Groningen, our main bus lines, the BRTs. And here you can also see Hoogkerk, it's on the blue line, just below the hoofdstation, but you will see that at the site visit. But for us, if the main step in our development is not how to get from A to B, but why do I want to go to B? What's the reason to travel? That can be school, that can be work, but also shopping, or you have to do your for the groceries, or go to see your family. And if you want to do that in the Netherlands, in our 2 provinces, you can only do that by your own car. The facilities are too much spread in our region to have one to have an alternative in public transport, or to cycle. It's too far. What we want to do with our hub network is make those facilities nearby where the people live, and that the people don't have to travel as much anymore. So less mobility, but also better for accessibility of our facilities. And then a lot of people in the Netherlands have not only 1 car, but 2 or 3 or 4. And what we're trying to do is less cars and more shared cars. And that's also more, an added value for our hub system. And if we want to make a new system, it will be accessible to everyone. That's if you have a disability. Now you can't travel as much because everything has to do by your own car. And if you don't have a car, then you have a problem. So what we are trying to do is make sure that the new system is for everyone. And when public transport is a better alternative, then it's also a better alternative for the people who have a disability. So for us, not only the mobilities are the main focus, but the facilities are the main focus, and that determines the success of our hubs. This is the picture of what I use a lot. Here you can see our mobility hub in Gieten. On the picture, the parcel lockers are just below where the bus is, and it's not on this picture. But what we are missing here in this picture are the people. There is no living soul on this picture. So what we are trying to do is make sure that our people are there, that it's a meeting place, and this can be the future. We hope we can build something that people, that facilities are there, that the people can wait indoors, that the people can meet each other, and that it's a crowded place and not a deserted place as it is now. And also, this is another example what we are trying to do now in the library. It's not only a place where you can read books, but also a place where you can have coffee, meet each other, where you can work, where you can get your parcels, and so on and on. So for our the facilities that we want to have on every hub, now that's a lot, and one of them is the parcel lockers, because we know there is a lot of it's used, and the usage increases. We have now we have 7, and we have a few coming. And also in Hoogkerk, there's now the parcel lockers for ULaaDS. It's also will be added. And here you can see the usage of 3 places what we have. You can see Rolde, that's the place where they use the most. And and why. That's the main reason of the main question. That's the place where you can, the accessibility by car is the best. And it's in bright view of everyone who is coming to that village has to go past the parcel locker. So everyone sees it, everyone knows it, everyone talks about it, and that makes sure that they also use it. The other two places, they don't. A lot of people don't know there is a parcel locker there. What we are trying to add, a lot. Public toilets is our main focus from now on, but a lot more what we are trying to do. Also the groceries or stimulation of local products, no, so on and on. A lot of things we're working on. So in the end, a hub helps us. We're not making a hub because we want a hub, but we want to make sure that everyone can join. So we want an inclusive mobility system. We want a sustainable future. So everyone is electric, and also logistic can be added here. But most of all, we want to make sure that it's easier for the people. So thank you. So that is my presentation.
Thank you very much, Martin. Do we have any questions for Martin at this stage? I can maybe ask you a question, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul first. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, perhaps also interesting to note, I'm very keen on this parcel locker usage, and these graphs were interesting also to me before, and we were a bit involved, and perhaps in addition to the one being most visible and accessible by cars, it is also the one where there is little other pickup points available in the vicinity. So it also shows that customers use a parcel locker like any other pickup point, which could be in a shop or a gas station or anything, right? So these parcel lockers in that sense make extra use in areas where there's little other facilities to pick up your parcel. But it's great actually to see the numbers going up still. So that was a happy graph, Martin. Thanks.
Yeah, my question was similar as well. Mert first.
Okay. My question was, are these parcel lockers also available inside the urban area? How well can we maintain or just use this service inside the urban area? Because in Kadıköy, it was private enterprises that created the parcel lockers. They are usually in the peripherals, but there is a huge logistic flow into the city center. That's why keeping them in the peripherals of the urban area is usually better in our case. How much should we integrate these inside the city? Is the conventional methods like the shops and the last mile delivery options, etc., better than parcel lockers? This is my now a question is in my mind on this. Thank you.
Perhaps I can reply. I think it's a very good question, and one that we are actively dealing with. And actually, I'm not sure whether you're planning to come to Groningen during this study visit, but if you are, we will spend the whole afternoon talking about precisely this, or at least half of the session will be about precisely this, where we also sort of weigh what municipality or municipal organizations can do, right? Especially on public, when parcel lockers are requested on public space, and whether you would even want that, and if you want that, how. So perhaps a teaser instead of a big answer, if you're okay with that. Sjouke maybe can add a bit more content-wise.
Well, I can confirm from a city perspective that this is a very hot topic, you could say, in a way. Maybe we want these pickup points like parcel lockers in everybody's neighborhood, so people can pick up their parcel by foot or by bike. But we also know there's a lot of pressure on public space, and we're very carefully with what we are putting on the public space. And when there's a parcel locker, not every company will use it. So anyway, they will go with their van to the homes. So there's a lot of things that make it difficult to make policy on this. But there will be more of this on Tuesday, over 2 weeks.
Thank you both. Martin, I don't know if you wanted to give, no? Okay, and I would just add that also we have Mechelen that is here in the group, and that will be present also in Groningen, and the approach was more close to having as many parcel lockers as possible in the inner city. So that could also, I think, be reason for a debate once we are doing the workshop on why the two strategies might differ. Good. Then I would say we can move on with the next presentation. So Erwin, I would give you the floor.
Sorry, just looking for my mic. Found it.
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I put it on slideshow. Yeah, everybody can see it now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you again, and welcome also on my behalf. My name is Erwin Mulder. I'm a project leader for the Groningen City Club. Sitting here together in the same room with Eric Bos, chairman of the Groningen City Club. And in the upcoming 10 till 15 minutes, I will tell you something about Groningen City Club, some of the projects we have, and also, of course, about our ULaaDS project. Before I start with telling you who we are as a Groningen City Club, it's important to know how we are positioned within the municipality. Municipality of Groningen consists of Groningen City and 2 surrounding villages. And individual entrepreneurs, also shop owners, are being represented through different organizations. And one of them is the Groningen City Club. And together with these organizations, they are combined within they have an economic agenda. And we are supported by several smaller project organizations, as you can see also on the lower part. Think of partners as Groningen Bereikbaar. It's an organization which focus on how to keep Groningen available, accessible during the years our highways are being transformed, as you can see if you are going to visit our city. But also we focus on energy. We have a group Groningen Werkt Slim. They are working on energy-driven topics. And each of these partners, these project organizations, receive an annual contribution for realizing plans and projects. And these fundings are collected through taxes. So every shop owner in the city pays for those taxes, and therefore they contribute in these projects. And Groningen City Club, just to get a picture, we receive an annual budget for around 500,000 euros each year to realize projects. Groningen City Club, we represent about 1,500 city center entrepreneurs, so including shop owners. We created a Groningen retail agenda in 2017. For us, it's mainly what we are doing, what is our vision for the city center. And we created that one together with the retailers, with the municipality. There are 23 themes, mainly focused on retail. And it's also not only for the city center, but also for the centers outside of Groningen, in the surroundings. And every year we create an implementation program, which consists of many projects we would like to finish this year. And we discuss it with our municipality and make sure that we do what we say. We have a paid board. We have 3 people who are in the board, and we have 2 external advisors, and one of them, of course, is me as a project leader. We have an administrative support, and we have also some committees, and they are managed by local shop owners. We have a couple of themes. I already mentioned them. A couple of themes, for example, digital innovation, collaboration, also local involvement, responsibility, sustainability, logistics, and zero emission. And we have a lot of projects, and I just show you a list of projects we have for this year. First of all, for example, digital innovation. We have more than 110 entrepreneurs, mostly shop owners, who receive a contribution when they work on their online presence. For example, a web shop or online marketing program. We are working on sustainability. We had last week a Sustainable Moments Festival. We create solutions for wastes, and not only waste as in rubbish, but also with obsolete goods. We are currently also working on how to make sure that the inner city is divided in distinctive areas, the DNA, how to keep different city centers attractive areas with their own unique selling points and atmosphere. We are working on energy, net congestion. We have many challenges in our country, but also in the north regarding the energy supply of businesses. We're working on research in how to keep business going on within current capacity. This means working together regarding storage of energy, exchange in energy, and so on. We're working on safety, of course, for our visitors, but also with our entrepreneurs. We're working closely together with education. Of course, Paul's also here with us in the ULaaDS project. We have many other education partners. We do kind of a lot of projects with them. We organize a lot of events to make sure that our city is attractive and people are going to visit our city. We're now working on how to reclaim public space. We have a challenge and we want to restore balance regarding advertisement in streets, pedestrians, terraces, bicycles, etc. Working on how to bring culture back to the city center. We have a lot of beautiful museums, and how can we make sure that their beautiful products and also the visitors from them also spend time and money in our city center. We do something about charity and poverty. Groningen is one of the most, well, let's say, many children in Groningen are raised in poverty, so we have some projects there. We do some coaching for entrepreneurs, also for shop owners. Due to COVID, we see that a lot of entrepreneurs are struggling. We offer them a program which they can choose coach in order to help them to make the next steps, or sometimes also to quit and to end their stores. We're working on green and art. It's mostly for parts in the city where streets are somewhat abandoned or less attractive. Trying to add green and art by creating small temporary city gardens. And of course, you will see it when you visit Groningen. We have a lot of bicycles, and it's fine to have them, but they also cause some problems and challenges in the streets. And at the end, we offer knowledge to our entrepreneurs. It's for shop owners, but also other businesses. We have an academy, and we offer some of them free courses. It's founded in 2016, and up till now, we offered some 100 different trainings or workshops, and almost had 5,000 participants in the 7 years we do it for now. So that's what we are as a Groningen City Club. Sjoukje already told you about the trial we had currently working on in Groningen. It's about logistics service. We have a roadmap to zero emission, as you already see in the presentation of Sjoukje. It means that local council stated that everything we do and all energy we use has to come from sustainable resources. And it means for the city center that all transportation and suppliers will have to meet these new standards. As from 2025, suppliers have to drive in zero-emission vehicles. And we wanted to see what challenges we face if we change that policy. So we participated in the ULaaDS trial. And it's about sharing vehicles. We asked shop owners to participate in this trial. Ended up with 19 of them. There are very different types of shop owners. And we focus on sharing these zero-emission vehicles. Pre-selected a cargo bike, a carver, and a minivan. And these are placed centrally in the center, located near the participants, as you can see on this map. And they can use these vehicles free of charge during a period of 1 year. It will decrease the number of vehicles in our city center. We had some challenges and still have regarding all 3 vehicles, so the cargo bike and the minivan we have not yet used, but the carver is already in use. And we also explored the possibility of creating a city hub for delivery services. So in short, that was my contribution. We hope to make, of course, Groningen City of the Future. So we'll enjoy your visit in 2 weeks when you're here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Erwin. Any question for Erwin at this stage? Mert, please.
How are these stakeholders selected was my main question. Are they inside a certain area, or are they inside a pilot area? Or do they come from a poll or a meeting?
That's a good question. It's mainly focused on the city center. And what we did was we wanted to make sure that every street and every part in the city center could join this pilot. As the Groningen City Club, we know which shop owners are willingly thinking about future business, and we selected them because we wanted to make sure that what we tried and what we piloted could be a success, or if not, we at least had good input on how to make things different. So we selected them. We knew prior to this pilot already that some of the shop owners were already working and thinking about how to make sure that their suppliers could come and visit Groningen. We also knew that some of them were already thinking about sharing vehicles. We did some trials also with commercial bikers. So we already knew that some of them were enthusiastic. So that's why this group was created.
And you sent 19 or 90?
No, 19.
19,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks. George?
Yes, good morning, everyone. You said that the City Club is funded by the city, and I may have missed it, but what's the level of annual funding to enable the club?
It was in the presentation, indeed. We receive 500,000 euros from the fund, and it's paid by taxes, and it's mostly to fund our projects. And we are also receiving different kinds of subsidies from the municipality, but it's then projects based. Yeah. For example, For example, the digital innovation project we currently run, I think we received a subsidy for 300,000 euros this year, specifically because of its by COVID. So you can imagine that our budget is much larger than the 500,000 euros we have to spend.
And just a quick supplementary, do any of the businesses or the retail organizations pay anything in at all?
Specific on the ULaaDS, not, but every shop owner pays the fund through taxes. So everyone the fund is being funded by taxes. And it's 6% extra.
Okay, thank you.
And I also had a question regarding the vehicles that you will be using for the trial in ULaaDS. How were they purchased? I mean, was it through ULaaDS or through other channels?
Now we work together with a local car dealer, Century, and it's a lease.
It's a lease, okay.
Yeah.
Jauke, you wanted to chip in?
Well, yeah. So for this trial from the city on, we pay for the vehicles, and after the trial, it should be commercial viable. So interesting for the provider, but also interesting for the shop owners.
Mm-hmm. And Vera, I'll give you the floor in a second. I had a follow-up question in terms of how do the shop owners how can they book the vehicle, or is there an online platform or a website, or how is the mechanism for them to have the vehicle at their disposal at a certain time?
This is via an app.
Via an app that you have developed for the booking.
Almost finished. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Vera, please.
I want to ask, from all the projects that we hear from the presentations, is any of the projects funded by concession schemes, or are funded only by government, local authorities? That's the question. The concession schemes are working with this project for construction management, like construction of a hub, for example, like construction of a terminal. Is it given by concession from the national or local authorities, or it is only from the city budget?
I think this
Maybe
is a question
Jauke?
for me. Yeah.
Yes.
So we did several projects, and what we did in these projects is never fund the physical hub or so. So what we did was finding companies and providing some subsidies, and mostly from European or national funds, but also partly the municipal funds. And the money they got was for developing new concepts, so never for paying their business, because if they use the funding for paying the business after the pilot, it will be gone. So that's what we focused on. Does this answer your question, Vera?
Yes, because here we have applied a lot of projects are managed from the concessionaires, third parties that invest and then manage and build and then manage and use, operate. This is the concessionaire schemes are applied here. Even for the construction of the terminals, construction of hubs.
Thank you, Vera. I think we can move to the next presentation if there are no further questions. Yeah, Paul.
Thanks.
The floor is yours.
I was asked to tell something about monitoring and monitoring the impact and evaluating initiatives, which is a role we often take as a university in several initiatives in Groningen. And I wanted to begin sort of interactively as far as I can, at least in an online setting like this, right? So because when we measure impact, the question immediately becomes, okay, what should be the impact, right? There's these many initiatives Erwin and Martin talked about, and specifically within ULaaDS, we have this sharing vehicles platform or the parcel locker. And then when we talk about sustainable urban freight transport, it's sometimes easy to sort of equate that with avoiding CO2 emissions, but actually there's more to it. There is climate change more broadly, right? This is a heat map of the city of Groningen, which actually turns out to be one of the hottest cities in the Netherlands because of its current structure in terms of pavements and asphalt. So obviously when the climate change occurs and keeps on increasing, that can be a goal to mitigate with sustainable urban freight transport. This is a picture of the highway coming into Groningen, which is currently actually being redone. But congestion is another potential ambition that one may have when you go for an initiative towards sustainable urban freight transport. Frequently, a nuisance is also noise pollution. This is a truck supplying restaurants, and especially the cooling engine, when it's not electric, can produce a lot of noise, and inhabitants and visitors of the city may feel hindered by the noise. Safety could be another ambition or goal when we look at initiatives towards sustainable urban freight transport, right? So trucks parked in the middle or in the middle of the street or on the sidewalk, and as a result of that, people living or being in the city must maneuver themselves around it, which can hamper safety. For some cities, air quality is very high on the agenda, so pollutants, particle matter. And lastly, but not unimportantly, also the use of public space, right? So currently logistics is using up quite a bit of our precious space in the cities. And well, these are 6 different goals that one may have when you think about new initiatives, be it mobility hubs, be it shared vehicles, be it access restrictions, zero emission zones, low emission zones, etc. Usually there is a variety of reasons behind these initiatives. And what I wanted to hear from you personally is, well, when you think of initiatives in your city or an initiative in your city, what would be the, how important would you value these goals? So you can either use this QR code, you will get to a Menti poll, or you can go to the chat where Ariana will have put a link. And I ask you to take a bit of time and weigh sort of the importance of these 6 different goals or ambitions. First one's coming in, that's always reassuring, so apparently it works.
The link is also in the chat. How are we doing with the answers?
We have 12 so far, so it's going quite quickly. I will shortly move to the other screen to show you also what's sort of the consensus, if any. So this, I do this quite often actually in my presentations, also to get a feeling of what are the importance of these different goals, right? And the answers are still dripping in, but this is a common thing that you see in responses like this. So usually people value each of these points quite highly, right? On a scale from 1 to 5, you see the average circling around 4, which I didn't specify precisely, but at least should be something like important. Or even towards the very important thing. You can also see the distributions, right? So in some cities, actually, for example, air pollution is not really a big thing. And then when you ask, you see these different distributions where some people think it's very important, and other people think it's perhaps less important. So here there's a bit more consensus, as you can see. And this is also an important thing when we are actually doing our evaluations within the University of Groningen, because actually different goals sometimes compete. For example, when we look at time-based access restrictions, like time windows. On the one hand, it can have a positive impact on the use of public space and safety, especially when the vehicles are not allowed, right? So if you as a city, for example, ban big trucks in the afternoon, so that the city is more freely available for visitors or inhabitants to be and have a drink and enjoy the city, then these time access restrictions help for the use of public space. But at the same time, we know from research that they have a negative impact on CO2 emissions, because the companies that do enter the city need to do in a shorter time frame, and as a result, usually they need more vehicles to do so. Right, so we saw in your Menti answers that there's actually quite a high ambition on every ambition, but sometimes there can be trade-offs.
Paul, can we take a question,
sure.
a spontaneous question from Francesco?
Sure.
Morning, everyone. It's not really a question, but as a matter of fact, you know, a positive impact can be many things. You know, maybe the climate change thing can be comprehensive of all the following statements, but I think we need to find a fair balance between all the things combined. So if we you know, have a negative impact of CO2, we need to balance it with a positive impact of, for instance, the use of public space and safety. You know, you would be naive to be, you know, to think that a positive impact is, you know, all positive answers. So we need to be pragmatic, and we need to, you know, that's according to each city, but we need to find a fair balance between the real needs of each city with energy.
Yeah, thanks. So actually, that's precisely also what I tried to convey, at least by showing that when I ask these questions about which ambitions are the most important, you usually see that most cities value all of them or most of them. But then when you do introduce measures or pilots or initiatives, usually they only are geared towards a single one of them, and they may indeed actually hurt one of the others, right? So that is also our struggle when we want to make impact, indeed to balance these or to deliberately prioritize one over the other, but then at least do so knowingly. Just as an example of what we are involved in with the University of Groningen, and also to sort of show you the challenges involved, and I will wrap these up in a concluding slide at the end. So Sjouke at a certain point, somewhere in 2018, asked me whether we could do a monitoring or an evaluation of a change in the time window access restrictions in Groningen. So actually in 2017, the city of Groningen changed from a situation with 2 time windows in which logistics vehicles were allowed, namely a morning and an afternoon or evening window. The change was made to a single, somewhat larger window in the morning. And the question to us was also to monitor its impact. And actually what we figured when doing this is that hard data, so quantitative data on these things, is hard to get by, especially data that can make a very clear before-after analysis. So in this case, actually, the most useful data was obtained via interviews. So we interviewed many shopkeepers and suppliers and carriers about their perceived changes. And as a result, we learned that actually this change made it much safer to be in Groningen in the evening hours, but also that shopkeepers perceived more vehicles in the morning, especially around 11 a.m., which now lies in the middle of the new time window. And also we learned that although this time window goes from 5 to noon in the morning, the effective time window for most people coming into the city starts only at 9 or even at 9:30 for various reasons, which makes the time window effectively very short and hence very busy around the 11 a.m. Sort of middle point. And also we learned that the 6 to 8 p.m. time window that used to be there was considered quite an important element of some of the business operations. So quite a few entrepreneurs in the city needed to change their operations in response to this time window access restriction. So what you see in this example is already, first of all, how difficult it can be to evaluate an initiative like this, but also that when you do these more qualitative interviews, you learn quite a few things that perhaps you couldn't have learned by just looking at the hard data. As a second example, I wanted to go to one of the ULaaDS initiatives, which we will also evaluate and monitor. And actually, it's about the platform that we just discussed and Erwin introduced, and there were a few questions asked about it. So this is the carver, by the way. So it's the one. This is one for person transport. The one that we have is a bit bigger in the back, so that it can store actually quite some load. And what we will do here is we will do prospective monitoring, so in the present. And basically what we'll do together with Centuri, the company that owns the vehicles and leases them to the city, we will receive quantitative data from the vehicles themselves. So the vehicles have GPS, we have the reservation log from the app, and as a result of that we can see precisely who used the vehicle, who used which vehicle from when to when, and from where to where, basically, and we can analyze how these vehicles are used, and this also forms the basis of making business model suggestions, right? So if we see they're used, the way they are used, we can sort of come up with a good business model when the pilot ends. At the same time, what we cannot do by means of quantitative data is figure out what the vehicle use is replacing. So for example, we can imagine that so we hope actually that some of the entrepreneurs will use this vehicle instead of a polluting vehicle, for example, their own van or personal car or a truck. But we don't know that by just looking at the quantitative data that is available. So what we'll do is we'll again also use an interview protocol. Based on these GPS and reservation log data, we can ask users to say, okay, we see that you usually use this vehicle on Monday morning. Can you explain to us why, for what purpose, what you're doing with it? And then we can also ask what this trip is replacing. And then as a result of that, we sort of have we can closely monitor how these vehicles are used and what the impact is of the pilot. But that's of course only half the story, because the pilot is indeed including only 19, so 19 entrepreneurs at this point, so hopefully a bit more as we go along. And it's only 3 vehicles, so within the pilot that is the number that it is, so we don't expect that number to grow. And of course the city center has much more than 19 entrepreneurs and much more than 3 vehicles, right? So somehow we also need to make this extrapolation to evaluate the broader potential impact of such a scheme. And this again is another challenge for us as a university, how to get from, say, this initial pool of users in the pilot to the potential use base, and from the impact, which will admittedly be almost non-observable in the greater scheme of things, right, to the potential impact when we would say, what if the inner city would have a service that is broadly used? So that's still our challenge, and we are working on that with several researchers in this project. So as a last slide to conclude, monitoring and evaluation, I think, is a very critical element of any initiative towards a sustainable urban freight transport. But also the monitoring and evaluation varies very much from one scheme or initiative or measure to the other. It depends very much on how big the scheme is, what it is addressing, which goals, and also on the data availability. So in some cities there is data on some aspects, not on others. In some cities there's almost no data. In other cities there's a lot of data. But anyway, it is good to have access to both qualitative and quantitative data. Now, as I mentioned, pilots are often small, and there's a challenge to measure the impact directly. Actually, this is often a no-go. So if you just measure, for example, air pollutants in the city, and you do a pilot, the chances of you observing a change in air pollutants is, well, almost non-existing. And if you do find it statistically, it's much more likely that it has another cause than your pilot, right? It could be a cruise ship passing by, which is creating more air pollutants, and then it's not at all related to the shared vehicle schema, for example. Right, so having this broader impact assessment is quite well, not trivial. And as I said, so my usual approach to this is then to both rely on quantitative data and qualitative data, and to make very explicit how you make this translation from pilot into final impact. That was it from my side. Hopefully within time, seems like.
Yes, thanks a lot. Paul, I see, Francesco, I suppose your hand is still up from before, but I see your colleague Marco wants to ask a question.
Yes, it's a general question. For example one, do you monitor the pollutant emission for your for example, if I change the time window, probably I have a problem with the audio. Probably if I change the time window, probably the traffic flow and the consequent pollutant emission should change.
Yeah.
If use a specific model to calculate the emission, the pollutant emission?
No, so it's a good question. So just to repeat, because the audio was it's not ideal, but the question is whether we measure, if I understand correctly, the question is to whether we whether we actually measure changes in pollutants in regarding to my first example, and two, what kind of model is used. So for this specific evaluation, we didn't have those figures available. I do know that the municipality of Groningen does facilitate a sort of pollutant emission figures on a regular interval. It is obliged in the Netherlands to hand over those data to the central government. So we didn't use that for this specific case. Also because again, it's very hard to see what is causing what when you analyze these data. So for the broader impact, the knowledge that CO2 emissions usually rise when you introduce a time window comes from operations research modeling, which quite clearly shows that companies need to change their routes according to new access restrictions, and as a result of that usually use a bit more vehicles and kilometers, which would translate immediately into more pollutants. But no, so we didn't measure for this specific example.
Thank you.
Do we have any other of the cities that are present here today that could chip in terms of how they are measuring impacts in their pilots, or how does this relate to the question that we just heard? Like, how do you actually know if the measure that you are taking are the one impacting the changes? I don't know if any of these other cities that are present here today want to share how they are monitoring this. This is not an interrogation at school, so feel free to skip the question. Okay, otherwise, any other question for the colleagues in Groningen? If not, maybe Jauke, can I ask you to put back your presentation? There was a slide on lesson learned from another project. I think it was the Surflog project. I don't know if you want to tell us a bit more about that. You are on mute. Just
Yeah.
I don't know if
I think I'm unmuted right now. I can go to the slide. Just give me a second.
I think it was slide 12.
This one. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have any questions, or shall I just
no, maybe
go a little
if
through
you
it?
can tell us a bit
Yeah.
more about what was the hub and the pilot, and what did you find out?
Well, a lot of things, of course. Maybe just to start with the most important thing, things like these hubs only work if you also introduce some policy framework, and when you introduce it, I mean it's never tomorrow, but it's within a few years, so that the companies have time to adapt to it. This will force changes in the businesses, and we've seen it, of course, with the pilots I showed you, but we also see that other transport companies also are searching for new locations, for new concepts, even without talking to them, because they know the things will change. So that's I think that's the most important driver for the changes. And when you look more at the hubs, for instance, we did some research to the locations of the hubs. I mean, in the inner city, it's quite expensive, but when you're farther away from the inner city, from your delivery location, yeah, the cyclists or the small vehicles have to go back and forth, because with a van, instead of van, you maybe need 3 or 4 cargo bikes or small electrical vehicles, and when you have to drive back and forth 15 minutes, that just costs a lot of time, and the time is very spare, of course, and that also depends on the type of companies. So, for instance, for a PostNL, it's very different than for a local bike courier, because the routes of PostNL are way more dense. It's part of a national network, and the local couriers, they only work locally with less dense routes. So the distance from the hub has a different impact on that. So these are all kind of things we learned about. Let's see, there's also a difference between the the local and the national deliveries. For a local courier company, it's of course interesting to do the local things, but also to be able to pick up national shipments. But they need another company to transport it to the rest of the country, and it's quite complex to build the viable business case on that. And when you look at the local shop owners, for instance, they prefer to have only one supplier, so they don't want to work with a local business if they also need a national transport company for the sales they have, the e-commerce sales. So I think these are more or less the things we found out. And when it comes to smart logistics, the planning and tracking software, yeah, that's on a business level, I think that's working very, very well. But on the city level, it's really hard to implement, and I think that's sort of the same thing we're facing here. Like Paul told, when the impact on a business may be very big, but when you look at the impact for the whole city, it's just a very small part. So that's what we're facing, and that's also why, of course, you always need the policy framework, so that all businesses need to make the change instead of a few front runners.
Thank you, Jauke. Any new questions following up on this? Otherwise, I have another request for you, Jauke, about the smart flex curb, or the management of the curbside with this data, the app that you showed that you are developing for next year. I don't know if you would be able to also tell us, yes, that one. Because I know this is kind of a hot topic at the moment, in terms of there are more and more projects coming up on this. So I don't know if you wanted to tell us a bit more how you have been working on this. You are muted, sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, so the work, the project needs to start, but of course we know what we want to test and how we want to do it. The idea is to test 2 different concepts. One is within the delivery window, the time window we have, And we hope that a system like this makes everybody a lot more aware that the delivery times are not only between 9:30 and 11, like Paul told, but also before 9 o'clock. There's space just to and time to use for your delivery. So we hope this will flatten the peak of the deliveries in the morning hours. And we hope that we can provide a more sort of reliable situation for the transport companies. So when they make a reservation, they know for sure that they can stop before the shop or whatever. And the other one is combining these reservations with an exemption in the afternoon. So within the inner city, there are some locations where there's not a lot of nuisance when a truck or a van comes in via an easy route. So on these locations, people could make a reservation combined to an entrance to the city. And when we know, all right, there's only one spot, then we can give the permit to only one truck. So these are the things we are setting up.
Okay, so if they use the app, they get a special permission to enter at different times of the day, in some cases.
Yes, in some cases. And of course, we start with testing things small, and when it's a success, we can scale up. Yep.
Great that ULaaDS will be still ongoing when this is happening, so that we can maybe see the results. So thanks a lot, Jauke. I have ended with my curiosities. I don't know if anyone else want to still use the last 15 minutes of this webinar to ask anything else to our colleagues. And if that's not the case, I think we can all... there is a question for Gunther. Gunther, do you want to ask?
Yes, or
or
sometimes I'm better in writing, yeah. Just as many of you already know, I'm working on a project on working conditions in logistics right now. And I just wanted to ask or rethink it, if the projects we do, like for example, ULaaDS, consider the impact on the working conditions enough, especially in subcontracting procedures, like typically in parcel deliveries. So if you're doing hubs, for example, are we increasing the pressure on the subcontractors that are actually doing the deliveries after that, because they have much more to go back and forth? And if I'm afraid that all the time that is needed will be on their issue, but not the company's issue, more or less. So I would be interested in your opinion.
So questions for the cities involved in the project and the operators probably as well. Is this aspect, do you feel it's considered enough currently in ULaaDS or in the other projects that you are running on logistics? Carsten. Carsten, I don't know if you're trying to talk. We cannot hear you. Carsten, if you can hear us, you are still on mute. Yes, now you, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I don't have a response to Gunther's question. Actually, my question was more to Jauke before, so maybe someone wants to answer Gunther's question or comment first, then I'll step back for a moment.
Well, maybe I can react on Gunther's question. Of course, this is a topic, but what we find out that the companies we work with, they are very aware of being how do you say it, responsible. So I don't think this happens with the companies we've been working with, but I don't know with how the situation is in with most companies in Groningen. I mean, of course, we've heard the stories, but when talking to companies, it's so maybe this is something to work on later, but not in our projects, as far as I know.
Maybe I do have a response, because we recently had a tour like of various logistics places at the National Cycle Logistics Conference, And what people told us from depots from which cargo bikes are emanating was a different experience than usually the people who drive the delivery vans. Typically, a lot of the bike couriers are students or part-time employees. So the response was, it's great. They feel they do sports and get paid for it. So it might be a different situation with the bike couriers and the people who actually ride those bikes, driven by passion or physical activity concerns, rather than the ones operating those small sprinter-sized delivery vans. That might maybe something to take into account here. It doesn't answer all of it. But, if I may add a question to Sjouke regarding the smart loading zones. How would you control these are not blocked by personal cars or passenger cars? And what would be the penalty for blocking those? And also, is there a price system? So if you make a reservation for the smart zone ahead of time, do you have to pay for it? And if so, is it maybe cheaper to reserve at 5 o'clock than it would be at 9 o'clock?
These are all variables we can implement or not implement in the project. So I think we will start easy, but also together with our my colleagues who are doing the enforcement on the streets. So I mean, we'll start on a small base and then work out the concept and test different ideas. But one of the main questions we have is, will it be used in the way people make the reservations? So that's one thing to find out in practice.
Mert, you added another question as well?
I actually had a reply, but I was keeping it for my presentation in the afternoon. But in our case, for example, a courier organization was during the pandemic, a group of cycling enthusiasts in Kadıköy, unlike the huge companies in this industry, provided a takeaway service. They carried a lot of deliveries. They were voluntary. They did voluntary work. When we realized their activity, for example, the municipality just provided them with a lot of bicycles in order to embolden their case. It's I think that kind of movement, that kind of also the dynamic that Karsten mentioned, is really important when people are using this. The people that are using the delivery vans, driving the delivery vans, are drivers, but the cargo bikers are mostly students or just disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged people that are trying to earn a few more bucks in their spare time. So it's also a nice activity inside in terms of strengthening the city's cycling activities as well. I think it has many benefits inside itself.
Thank you, Mert. Yes. So anyone else that okay, I see there are some comments in the chat. Gunther is mentioning that there were 2 national Austrian projects on curbside reservations. So Žauke, maybe something to look up in the run-up if you were not aware of this before. And Marco is also reacting. So thanks, everyone. I think if there are no further points, we can finish maybe a tiny bit earlier. And many of you will also join for the replication webinar at 1 p.m. this afternoon. So this is a webinar in which we will hear from Mert from the city of Kadıköy and Vera from the city of Elbasan, which are our follower cities that will join us in Groningen. And we will also have a look at the final version of the agenda for the study visit and reply to any of the questions you might have beforehand. So I would say have a nice lunch break, and I'll see many of you at 1. And for the others, thank you very much for having presented here with us today, Martin, Erwin, Paul, Jauke, of course, and looking forward to meeting you in person soon. So thanks, everybody, and we'll speak soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All the best.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.